My name is Mattia Prayer Galletti. I am the lead technical specialist responsible for indigenous peoples and tribal affairs. We have 470 million indigenous peoples around the world in about 90 countries. Altogether, they comprise 6% of the world population. However, the incidence of poverty among them is very high because they represent 18% of the world poor. But in addition, if we consider that these indigenous peoples are responsible as a custodian of 80% of the world biodiversity, we will not be able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals if we are not there to support what indigenous peoples are doing. In the Amazon regions where indigenous peoples live, there is almost no deforestation. So what they do is also on behalf of the world community, because biodiversity is a global good. At the same time, instead of recognizing and respecting the work they are doing, very often indigenous peoples are marginalized, if not criminalized. And the indigenous peoples very often are not considered by governments as important actors. It's IFAD empowering indigenous peoples to engage in a dialogue. We are able to identify lessons that eventually will be useful to enable and empower indigenous peoples to engage with governments in a dialogue which is going to identify the real bottlenecks. Very often the bottlenecks are at the policy level, bottlenecks in terms of access to land, access to natural resources, access to financial services. At the moment we have 62 ongoing projects for a total investment of $670 million, which is by far the largest investment by any financing institution on indigenous peoples, reaching out an estimated 5.7 million indigenous peoples. And this portfolio is basically a golden mine. Every 2 years we have an annual meeting at IFAD, which is scheduled always in conjunction with our governing council, which gives the opportunity to the indigenous peoples organizations and the delegates nominated in regional meetings in advance to come up with recommendations addressed to IFAD and to governments. And this is done on purpose to allow indigenous peoples to read the conclusion of the forum in front of our member states. In New York, this is one thing that makes me proud, listening to indigenous peoples telling to the General Assembly in front of all delegations of member countries, referring to IFAD as a model organization for the way it's working with indigenous peoples. This is a difficult area. This is a remote community. Only IFAD is the organization willing to take the risk to finance these kind of projects.